Do you ever just feel exhausted or drained, maybe burnt out from work, the daily grind of waking up, going to work, or maybe you're just exhausted from the responsibility that you carry from day to day, the things you're responsible for, the people you're responsible for taking care of, for providing for, the relationships you're responsible for. Maybe you even feel burdened just by the responsibility to stay healthy spiritually, to be the person that God has called you to be. There's so many things that we're called to be and called to do, responsibilities we're called to uphold, expectations we're called to uphold, and it can be really exhausting sometimes when we are relying on our own strength, when we're relying on our own ability. And I'm personally coming out of a time in life where I was just feeling absolutely exhausted. I was feeling completely burnt out, like I had nothing left to give, just worn out from responsibility and what I felt were people's expectations for me, and just worn out from feeling like there's a certain standard that I need to reach that I was just falling short of. And all the while I was trying to work harder and harder, trying to do more, to uphold my responsibilities, to meet the standard that I felt like people had for me and the standard that I had for myself. I was relying on my own strength, my own understanding, trying to come up with my own ideas of how to become more effective in work, or to be a more honorable person. So many different things I was trying to maintain and uphold, but I was doing it in my ability, in my strength, and it was exhausting. And I want to talk today about how we can work, how we can uphold responsibility, how we can be who God's called us to be, and we can live up to a high call and a high standard and yet not be burnt out and not become exhausted because we work with Christ. I want to read from Matthew chapter 11. I will start in verse 28. We'll go to verse 30, but it says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So Jesus is inviting all who are burdened, all who are heavy laden, all who are feeling exhausted by the expectations of this life, by the calling on our life, the work, the responsibility, all the things we carry. All you who are feeling heavy and burdened, come to me and I will give you rest. But he's not saying, come to me and you will not have to work. He's not saying, come to me and you will have no more responsibility. You will have no more to worry about, nothing left to do. He's saying, come to me and your work will become light. Your burden will become light. We're still going to work, but we're going to do it together. He talks about how my yoke is easy, and this image of a yoke. Back then, ox will be put in a yoke. It's a wooden brace that would go over their necks, and so two ox would be put in a yoke, and then they would pull the plow or whatever they're pulling. And so Jesus is inviting us to come and carry the yoke with him. So he's saying, we're still going to work, but I'm going to work alongside you. And because of that, the work is going to be light. It's going to be enjoyable. It's going to be easy. And so when we learn to take our work, to take the things that we're responsible for, and we allow Christ to walk with us through it, we allow Christ to lead us through it, that work becomes light, and the responsibility becomes light, and our work can actually become more enjoyable. And something I've found recently in my life as I've kind of been working to bring my burden and just bring myself to Christ first instead of going to my own understanding, my own ability, I found that I've been able to work less hard and yet be more effective. And that sounds like kind of a backwards idea. I feel like, especially from Americans, we kind of attribute the harder we work, the more hours we put in, the more we exhaust ourselves, the better our work is, the more productive we're going to be. But I just don't think that's true. I think actually sometimes we are striving so hard to work as much as we possibly can, to be as productive as we possibly can, that we actually end up becoming unproductive, and we actually end up just having nothing left to give because we've exhausted ourselves in our own trying and striving. And so when we can work the way that God has called us to work, we can work more effectively, more efficiently for longer, and we can do it with joy and with peace. And it's something that we get to share with God. God is asking you to work with him. He wants to share in your work with you. He wants to do it alongside you. And it's a way we can be in relationship with God through our work. We can uphold the things that we're called to be as Christians, as believers, the high standard. And we can take that call on with joy, that great responsibility. We can take it on with joy and with confidence because we know we're going to do it with Christ right alongside us, not relying on our own strength or our own ability, but instead finding our strength from Christ, who is leading us. And so I'll just want that to be an encouragement for you today. If maybe you're feeling burnt out or burdened, or you're feeling like the responsibility of being a Christian or being a husband or a wife, or the responsibility of just working every day, it just feels like it's too much to handle, or you've been working and trying your hardest and it just doesn't seem like it's enough. I want to encourage you, take a pause, take a step back, and bring your burden to Christ and take on his yoke. Surrender your own striving, surrender your own effort, your own understanding, and allow Christ to lead the way. Ask Christ how he's calling you to work, and let him show you what the standard of work needs to be in your life, what the standard of responsibility needs to be in your life. As I've allowed Christ to give me vision and direction for how I should do ministry as a pastor, again, I found myself thinking and realizing, man, I feel like I'm not working as hard, and yet the ministries that I'm leading have been more fruitful than they've been in any time I can remember in the last year. It seems like work has gotten easier and yet become more and more effective and more fruitful in the ministries that I'm called to lead. And even my calling as a husband, it feels like it's become more enjoyable to serve my wife because I'm first being led by Christ and following his example of how to love and to serve. And so when we can share our burden and our work with Christ, our work can become easier, more enjoyable, and more effective. So just remember that today. His yoke is easy, his burden is light, and he's just asking you to share in that with him today. Thanks for watching.